Yeah, sorry. I had to post that.
He's a newsbreaker himself, in case you didn't know.
What'd you break?
Oh, no. I was just putting out, just letting them know we had Sam on. Just,
just
throwing a little chum in the water,
Just promoting SEC Mike's show here.
Always be
with Cousin Shane.
Yeah, hey, we could use you as the presenter. So, Jesse Simonton, On 3, how's it going, brother?
I'm doing well, boys. How y'all doing?
Doing good. Always good to see you, brother. Busiest man at this event.
I don't definitely not. But I am running. You're running around like a chicken with your head cut off. That's for sure. 4 days in Dallas, man.
It is. It is a grind, isn't it?
It is.
And is it? Do you find it harder, on day 4, or you kind of like it? Because if you'll notice, a lot of these other beats have kind of cleared out a little bit. It's a little less drama.
Yeah, I don't know if it's hard. Yeah, I don't know if it's again, this is better than digging ditches. So, hard is all relative here, but it can be an energy suck. But you're right. I mean, it's funny because you start seeing it starts withering down pretty good.
Have you picked up any nuggets at all that just makes you question maybe any of the preconceived notions you had coming into this event at all?
I mean, I none of these sort of like specific, grand swath takeaways. I think you can take away like little things like, Ryan Williams, 5-star wide receiver at Alabama, freshman, one of the top players, in the 2024 class. Didn't enroll, until post-spring, so he didn't get to participate, in those 15 practices. So I think there's some questions. How ready would he be? I mean, damn, you listen to what Jalen Milroe had to say and what some of his teammates, Tyler Booker had to say. They're talking about just off-season workouts, when this guy got here a month ago in Tuscaloosa. Sounds like he's going to be ready on, day 1. Now, we'll see. That didn't materialize with Malik Benson a year ago, right, but maybe it will for a 5-star. So that's just like one small little example. But it's those sorts of things that you just you maybe write down or just take note. I'm not going to write a column on that. I'm not going to, go out there and parade it. But that's something that's like, hey, I kind of have some question marks about Alabama's receiving core. If they can slide in a 5-star freshman on day 1, maybe some of those concerns are assuaged a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, maybe you were already pretty high on Garrett Nussmeier. I don't know where you were at with him, but that's kind of been my main thing that I've kind of picked up talking to LSU people, hearing what Brian Kelly says, his confidence in the offense. I think I may be undervaluing Garrett Nussmeier and the impact he could have this year. What's your thoughts on Nussmeier?
I like Nuss. I mean, we've seen it in spots. We saw he played kind of an undermanned Wisconsin team and sliced and diced up those boys. He looked really good playing against cover 2, down 28 points in the SEC championship game to Georgia. What can he do now that everything's on his shoulders? He's got to carry the full plate of gum. It's the full bowl of gumbos now. He's got to eat it, but it's his responsibility to make sure all the spices and everything are right. There's a lot of newness on LSU's, entire team, from the defensive staff to the wide receiver core to the portal additions they've made. Now, the biggest benefit Nuss is going to have is that he probably is going to be playing behind either 1 or 1B offensive line in the country. Mm-hmm. You got those 2 bookend tackles with Campbell and Davis there. I mean, I think you really got to like what they have. So we'll see. I will say this. I polled you. I didn't actually. Shane wasn't here, so I didn't actually get Shane's response. You can tell me here, and I can go in and add it. But I did a straw poll. 50 media members, so you'd be 51. So I can add I'll add it. I can add an asterisk.
Puerto Rico?
There you go. It's Puerto Rico. I like it. The annexation.
Yeah.
So 50 media members, straw poll, who's the best quarterback in the SEC this year? SEC Mike went with his Brady Cook. He got 1 vote. Garrett Nussmeier got 0 votes. Surprise me. That did surprise me. Carson Beck, the overwhelming winner. But, it did surprise me that Nuss, because we have seen those glimpses of stardom, that he didn't get a single vote.
I'm kind of surprised Brady didn't get. I mean, maybe because, I don't know, maybe we bought in, we're all in hook, line, and sinker with Mizzou, but I think Jackson Dart is the guy for me. And I just think that he has
Dart
the pieces.
ran 3rd.
Yeah. and just because of the progression he's made every single offseason, he is becoming a better quarterback. And I think if he continues that trajectory, he's going to be one of the first guys selected in the draft.
Yeah, and that was what was kind of interesting to me and why I kind of just did the exercise. Michael gave his reasons. Everybody kind of had a different philosophy for why they chose who they chose. Some chose what NFL draft nicks were saying or what scouts were saying. Others went with, well, I think that, Jalen Milroe has the, highest upside or is the most electric talent. Some went with Dart because they say, hey, he's going to put up the best stats, the monster numbers in Lane Kiffin's system. Quinn Ewers, got a lot of votes. Number 2.
If you're playing college football 25, I'm going with Milroe. I guess it just depends on the situation. I think that's a perfect point. Or Brady, I just think he is the team, and if Brady's not there, that's in my mind a Heisman candidate is somebody that if you remove him, that team suffers tremendously.
Yeah, Missouri as a team, I know y'all are riding the flagship colors here for the Tigers. They're going to be one of the curious teams to me this fall because there's a lot to like. You love Luther Burden, you love Theo Weiss. I'll push back on your Cody Schrader. You can just plug and replace. I know Carroll, the Georgia State guy, is going to be good. They got some other guys in the backfield, but Schrader was a one-cut beast. Running behind those boys. My biggest concerns with the Tigers is just defensively. It's just a lot to replace. Not saying it can't happen.
5 draft picks, I believe.
5 draft picks, but you also, which was more than even Georgia sent defensively. So that's you just say that out loud, and you're like, whoa. You lose Baker and Peoples. 2 key defensive assistants.
We just reload at the zoo. I don't know if you've heard.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Tiger can't change his stripes, but maybe they can clean their paws a little bit and stay dry. So I'll be curious. I do think Missouri with the schedule super favorable.
Yeah.
But if they trip up anywhere, they're one loss away from, I think, looking on the outside, looking in for the playoff. I think they have to go 10-2 if they're going to make the SEC. We'll see about the SEC championship if they're going to make the 12-team playoff.
I got one for you. We had a couple. We just had Sam on. Obviously, he is going to let you know he's on the hot seat. So is quote unquote Napier, and some people don't want to say it, but I think Beamer's hovering pretty close. So I want to ask you this year. 3 games I think are pivotal for all of those. We got the Miami, Florida, we got the South Carolina, Kentucky, and we've got, I would say, Arkansas, Oklahoma State. Out of those 3, which one has more riding on it?
Oh, to me, it's definitely the Miami game. I've dubbed that the Anxiety Bowl. I think that game has super high stakes for both coaches.
Yeah.
For Cristobal, now he's not in danger of getting fired. He's armed with a 10-year contract, and $10 million. But you lose that game when Miami has ACC championship expectations, and that wouldn't go out the window with a loss to Florida, but it would put a hell of a lot of pressure on the rest of the season. On the other sideline, with what Florida has schedule-wise, if you fall at home in a coin flip game to Miami, now Miami's going to be a preseason top 25 team, Florida's not, but we all know that little number next to your name at the beginning of the season when you're in that 15 to 20 range doesn't mean a whole lot for a team like Florida that still returns a decent amount of talent and metrics-wise is going to be a top 30-ish team in the Vegas Power Poll. So if Florida loses that game, especially as optimistic as Napier has talked about his team this offseason, look, guys, I live in Gainesville. It's Florida is an interesting program because they've won several national championships in the last 25 years, but they haven't won an SEC championship in 15 years. They're not a Tennessee. They're not a South Carolina. These fans won't show up to the Swamp for losses. When the going's good, they're among the loudest and the craziest fan base in the country. But there's an apathy and a danger in that apathy if Florida doesn't win. And that's frankly why Billy probably deserves another year with what he inherited, with kind of the mistakes he made in year 1 and the corrections he's tried to go on the next 2. And we'll see how this season plays out. He probably should earn 4 seasons, especially when Florida could be on their 5th coach since 2011. But Florida may not be able to afford that. And I don't mean financially. I mean, like, you can't fall to mediocrity or lower in the SEC with Texas and Oklahoma now in the league. Your biggest rival, Georgia's trying to win a third national championship in 4 years. Alabama, LSU, on down. Tennessee's good again. So,
and one thing you didn't even mention, Florida State's really good.
And Florida State in your own league. So if you lose to another in-state rival, Miami, shoot, good luck.
What's your thoughts on Tennessee this year? Do you think Nico? I mean, that's a lot of people ask us about Nico. What are you hearing about how good he can be?
I think he's got star potential. I mean, I think in Heupel's system, frankly, you don't look. We've seen guys not nearly as talented as Nico Almalieva flourish in Josh Heupel's system. To me, if Tennessee's going to be a playoff team, it's not going to be about Nico. Nico's going to he's going to take all the headlines. He's going to get all the praise. He's going to suck up all the oxygen. It's what Banks' defense does, their next evolution. They were not very good in year one. Improved, red zone, third down year two. Year three, I think they were like 1-2 in the SEC in tackles for loss, sacks, really good against the run. But they were Swiss cheese in the secondary.
Yeah.
Have they fixed that? Have the Vols, they basically just moved on from everybody in the secondary and just brought in a whole new group. So, can you Band-Aid over that bug? We'll see. And if they can, with that schedule, because they have, again, it's SEC hard, but it's SEC hard by comparison. Their schedule's much more favorable than like what Georgia and Alabama are going to be playing this fall. You get Alabama at home. That's key. Florida at home. A year ago, I did think, I thought that was a big missed opportunity. And we kind of talked about it, I think, on your very show, and I said it a bunch of different places. Heupel needed to win in Gainesville, and he didn't. So you got to get them back in Knoxville. You get Alabama back. So I think Tennessee has playoff potential. As I wrote in a column earlier this week, though, it's easy to rattle off 5, 6, 7 teams that want to make the college football playoff this year. And it's easy to think in our head, there's 12 spots. But there's not. There is 12 spots, but when you take away the Big Ten, ACC, Big 12, Group of 5, 4 go away right away. Then mathematically you're saying, all right, if it's not going to be Oregon, it's going to be Ohio State. One of those two is going to make it. You're down another spot. So it's tough. So it's going to be. I'm not someone that's been a fan of the 12-team expanded playoff. I would have preferred to stick at 4, but there will be some very interesting late season matchups. Whether it's a Texas versus Texas A&M, maybe one of those teams is playing to get in, or an elimination game. Tennessee's, having to beat a Kentucky or somebody like that to make sure that they maintain that record.
Mm-hmm. I was just thinking, chance of snow games in the playoffs. I mean, it could be pretty cool too. Going to these.
Well, I will say this, and I do think it's gonna. Well, I can't say I do think. I do hope there's at least rumblings that they want to do this. We'll see. The bowl system has long, kind of strong-armed the sport of college football. But I do hope they ultimately go to the NFL model where they play every game at college stadiums, and then you have the Super Bowl, the championship, and you just rotate between the Rose Bowl, the Sugar Bowl. You do it that way.
One thing I want to ask: have you done your ballot yet? Have you done?
I have not.
Okay. And I don't want you to give it away or anything like that, but when we look at that list when it comes out, is there one team in particular that you may be higher on than most people?
Probably A&M. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm someone that I like A&M. I like Elko. I think that he has a quiet confidence, for as much attention as like their portal departures got and the roster being hemorrhaged and whatnot, there's still a hell of a lot of good players on that team from that top-ranked recruiting class a couple years ago. I think by the end of the season, they may have the best, if it's not Tennessee, because I think Tennessee is in this conversation, Texas A&M may have the best defensive line, in the SEC. Tennessee's got all those tackles, those 6-year guys who've played just a ton of football. But A&M's got some beasts off the edge. And you bring in Scorton from Purdue. You got Shamar Stewart, Shamar Turner. The fact that we can even say that they may have the best defensive line when they lost Walter Nolan is kind of bananas. So I like A&M. I have some concerns about that. I don't know if they can be a playoff contender. They're probably more spoiler than sleeper. Because I'm not really sure if they have the receivers. Is Owens ready to be kind of the dog at tailback? But I think they're going to catch some people, and I like them. And I think Oklahoma has a lot of talent too. And frankly, we'd be talking about them like everyone's talking about Texas if they had Texas' schedule.
Yeah,
and their offensive line.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, you know what? I will say this. Could be. Hey, we're at SEC Media Days. I've been at the spring meetings. I've been talking to some of these coaches at other events and whatnot. It's talking season.
Yeah.
It's easy to spit out your behind, when you don't have any games played yet. So I understand that. Having said that preamble, Brent Venables does seem extremely optimistic and confident that he's brought in the right guys. Bill Bedenbaugh is probably one of the best offensive line coaches in the country. Mm-hmm. So if anybody can figure out how to kind of coalesce a 5-man transfer portal group, it's probably him. The kid from SMU, the center, he all-conference player. The kid from Ohio, all-conference player. Now we're talking about real step up in competition now, and so we'll see. I will say they were certainly pretty PO'd about losing Caden Green to Missouri.
Oh yeah, we are aware. We are aware of that. Could Kentucky be this year's Missouri? Breakout, ton of returning production. I think number one on the defensive side of the ball. What's your thoughts on that? And maybe not even win 11 games, but just kind of be the biggest surprise of the SEC.
They could. You have to. We're here. You got to pump your own work, right? Right, Shane. I mean, you got to pump your own stuff. So
where do we find that?
Yeah, exactly. So earlier this summer, to Mike's question, I had a column at On3 that I basically said that Kentucky, this year's Kentucky, is emblematic and frankly just like the poster child for the SEC's depth and why it's the deepest conference. Because you look at the preseason odds, you look at the win totals, you look at that stuff, and they're like 9th or 10th. Yeah. And you're like, damn, like they're probably a top 30 team by Vegas power rankings, and they return all this defensive production. And I like their receivers. Like the tailback they brought in. You start at they're checking a lot of boxes here, but they're 9th or 10th, and that's the thing. They're 9th or 10th. I mean, but again, they're in that conversation where they showed up here to Dallas, and they're probably at the very end of that list. But if you're writing down a list of teams, they think that they maybe, if they land the right straight, if the straight hits, that they can make a run to the playoff.
I think we hit on all teams except for Vanderbilt. So my last question to you is, the rumors were that there was pressure from the league to make Vanderbilt. I'm not saying that happened and this is all, but was there pressure to do stadium renovations? Was there pressure to get more involved with NIL? Are you hearing any of that?
I have not heard any of that. I will say that I think some fan bases are going to be glad that there's not this hanging scoreboard right underneath their players. When they're putting on their jock straps and helmets before the games, and they'll be happy that they get to go down Broadway look, the guys, they're always going to have their stadium, just completely railroaded by opposing fan bases, and that's part of the deal. The more interesting thing to me with Vanderbilt is that their head coach, and I like Clark, but he told me 2 years ago in some pretty frank terms, how they were anti-NIL and they were not going to build through the portal, and that they were a developmental program, and this was about character and culture and guys buying in, and they've done a complete 180. this year. And I think they frankly had to.
Yeah.
Because when your roster's getting rated constantly, I mean, like, this is a perfect example of where Vanderbilt's living right now. London Humphreys, was probably their second best receiver a year ago, one of the fastest players in the SEC, 3 years of eligibility remaining. He transfers to Georgia, and he's basically going to take a red shirt this year. If you talk to folks in Athens, Georgia's wide receiver room is so loaded, he's not going to, like, he'll get in the fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And he was probably going to be Vanderbilt's number one receiver this year. You just can't survive that. And so Clark has had to make a lot of adjustments. He's going to be on, you mentioned Shane. I don't think Shane's in danger of being fired this year unless South Carolina completely face plants and goes, 2 and 10, something like that. But he's going to be a guy that I think in 25, same with Clark, that'll enter with some real pressure.
I think I'm starting to rub off on him with these hot takes. You know what?
I said it as a bold take, and it just rubbed me the wrong way now. And now I'm like, you know what?
Well,
I can see it.
You just sat here with Mr. Yes Sir Sam. I mean, what do y'all think Arkansas's got to do,
buddy? I don't know if there is anything he can do, to be honest with you.
I kind of feel it too. I like Sam, but he kind of almost seems resigned.
Well, that's true, but I'll be the optimistic one for a change. I think if they could fix the offensive line with Taylon Green, everything we hear behind the scenes, Taylon Green is legit. They got more returning production at receiver than anybody in the SEC, and that includes Luke Haas, who barely played. He was going to be probably freshman All-American if he continued it. So I think they got nice weapons. I'm not one of these people that's enamored with Bobby Petrino. I don't know how great of a hire that truly will be, but it surely should be better than Dan Enos. And really, I thought Arkansas's defense, first part of the year, was one of the biggest surprises in the SEC. Now, at the tail end, they were awful. But I don't know if that was because their offense literally could not move the ball, could not score. How are you going to keep putting up an effort? I think they kind of gave way of the rope a little bit.
It's funny. It's funny that both Billy Napier and Sam Pittman are the two hot seat guys this season, because I think their teams could mirror each other in the sense that they absolutely might be better, perhaps even a lot better than they were last year. And it may not show a lick of beans in their record because of the schedules they have. I mean, you're talking about returning production. They got to play Oklahoma State, which ranks top 5 nationally in returning production too. You know, Oklahoma State may have the oldest damn offensive line in the country this year with all their 6-year guys. 7th-year starter at quarterback, Ollie Gordon's gonna clearly play in that game, not gonna be suspended. So when you add Oklahoma State plus the rest of their schedule, and it's going to be an uphill grind for Mr. Pittman.
Last thing I got for you, Jesse, really appreciate your time. With Alabama, Nick Saban obviously retiring.
You've killed him.
Yeah, well.
Buried the tide.
I like to say I got him fired or retired or whatever we want to call it. But for the better part of 20 years, Alabama was the easy pick in the SEC. Is that just going to be Georgia moving forward, or with Texas and Oklahoma and all these other high-powered teams like Tennessee, and even I would throw Ole Miss and Missouri in that race potentially? Are we going to have a handful of teams? It could be a rotate, LSU, A&M, whoever it is, rotating group of teams that will contend for the SEC annually, or is this Georgia just the new Bama?
I think until proven otherwise, I think frankly it's probably going to still be, I would say it's going to still be in tiers. I think it's going to be Georgia, Alabama, and depending on how this season unfolds, Texas, just because, look, momentum is a day away from losing it is a day away, but Sark is building a juggernaut roster. We don't know if he's building a juggernaut program yet, but he has built a juggernaut roster. And so if that does culminate in more wins, then I think you're going to have a tier with Oklahoma, with Texas, Georgia, and Alabama, and then it's going to be up to the Tennessees, the Texas A&Ms, and the LSUs to prove that they are firmly, Oklahoma, are firmly in that next tier too. Ole Miss and Missouri, their next step after this season is going to be, where's your staying power? Was this an all-in? We had the aces, and so we're playing them. or are you able to reload and do this again and again and again? Because I do think that Tennessee, Oklahoma, A&M, and LSU have at least proven, based on their recruiting, that they can be in that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the biggest storylines. If Ole Miss and Missouri can win 10 or more, and given their schedules, that's not crazy. Their boosters, whoever's paying this NIL, I think they're going to keep paying it. If they go 8-4 or worse, I don't think those checks are going to be there.
Yeah, and that's the pressure.
Yep. All right, Jesse, really appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
Before you go, can you tell the audience how to follow you, how to find your work?
Yeah, find me at on3sports.com, and you can follow me at Jesse R.E. Simonton. Always happy to chop it up with the SEC Mike and Cousin Shane.
Appreciate you,
Absolutely,
man.
brother.